Have you ever stopped to think about what a super complex legal contract has in common with, say, the instructions for building IKEA furniture? Well, the answer is this powerful and often invisible skill called technical writing. So today, we're going to break down exactly what that is, why it's so important, and how it really just turns confusion into clarity.
So let's start right there with that question. What on earth could possibly link a dense legal document, the kind you'd need a lawyer to translate, with a simple, picture-filled IKEA manual for a bookshelf? I mean, they seem like they're from completely different planets, right?
Well, the invisible thread that ties them all together is technical writing. And honestly, the best way to think about it is as a kind of superhero for information. It just swoops in to rescue us all from the brink of confusion. At its core, technical writing is all about taking really complex subjects and making them simple. It's like a bridge. It takes these tangled, expert-level ideas from one side and transforms them into clear, usable information on the other, all so that somebody can get a specific job done. It basically turns a confusing puzzle into a really clear picture. And you'd be surprised where it pops up. We're talking about the user manual for your new phone, those business reports that decide company strategy, the web pages you scroll through every day for info, and yep, even those super dense legal agreements. Technical writing is really the invisible backbone holding up clear communication in just about every field you can think of. So what's the secret sauce? What makes this language superhero so darn effective? Well, it all boils down to four key principles. Let's just call them the 4 rules of clarity. First up, we've got clarity. And this is the big one. It's about being absolutely crystal clear. If you were telling a friend how to make a sandwich, you'd use simple words and you definitely wouldn't leave out any steps, right? Technical writing is exactly like that. No fancy jargon, just straight up, direct communication. Next is conciseness. Think about a tweet. You've got a super limited amount of space to get your point across, so every single word has to count. Technical writing is all about that philosophy, using short words, short sentences, and cutting out anything that's repetitive. It just respects your time by getting right to the point. Then we have accessibility. Imagine trying to read a book that has no chapters or page numbers. It'd be a total nightmare to find anything. Well, accessibility prevents that kind of chaos. It uses tools like headings, lists, and tables of contents as signposts, guiding the reader so they can find exactly what they need without getting lost in a maze of text. And finally, there's accuracy. This one is completely non-negotiable. In the world of technical writing, one tiny mistake can cause huge problems. Think about a misplaced decimal point in an engineering plan or a confusing step in a manual for a medical device. It's not just about being correct, it's about making sure things are safe and functional. Every single piece of that puzzle has to fit perfectly. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, this sounds a lot different from the kind of writing I had to do in school. And you'd be totally right. So let's break down the huge difference between technical and academic writing. And the differences are pretty stark. On one hand, academic writing is all about exploring complex ideas for an audience of other experts, trying to add to the conversation. But technical writing, its whole purpose is to simplify complex info to help someone get something done. And that difference in purpose completely changes the style. Academic writing is often formal and exploratory, while technical writing is always direct, concise, and practical. Okay, this slide is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Look on the left. You've got this descriptive paragraph using persuasive, flowery words like versatile and elegant. That's for a consumer. Now look on the right. It's a technical card, probably for a technician or a salesperson. Just the facts, ma'am. Color, capacity, power, dimensions. It's the same exact microwave, but 2 completely different approaches for 2 very different audiences and goals.
All right, so we get the principles, but how does a technical document actually get made? It's not magic, I promise. It's actually a pretty structured 3-stage process that takes you from a mess of ideas to a polished final product. So first, we start with pre-writing, which is basically like drawing up the blueprint before you build a house. Then comes the writing stage. That's the actual construction phase. And finally, you have post-writing, which is where you come in and add all the polish and finishing touches. So let's zoom in a bit and really see how this all works. We're going to follow an idea all the way from a chaotic first thought to a perfected, easy-to-use document. The pre-writing stage is all about making a mess and exploring your ideas. This is where you figure out not just what you're going to say, but who you're saying it to. Perfection is not the goal here. You're just trying to generate ideas. Things like brainstorming or free writing, where you literally just write nonstop for 10 or 20 minutes, are perfect for this. You're just creating the raw clay you're going to sculpt later. And all that raw material leads you to your first draft. Now, the most important rule for a first draft is this. It's just a brain dump. Don't even think about grammar, spelling, or perfect sentences. The one and only goal is to get all those ideas out of your head and onto the page. That's it. And finally, we get to the post-writing stage. This is where you make it shine. Think of it as adding the frosting to the cake. You review and revise to make sure everything is clear and flows well. You edit and proofread like a detective, hunting down any little errors. And you format it with clean headings and lists to make sure it's accessible and looks professional. And that really brings us to the most important takeaway from this whole thing. Perfection is not the goal. It's never the goal. From the messy start to the polished finish, the mission is always, always the same: to get your ideas across as effectively and as clearly as you possibly can. At the end of the day, technical writing is just a tool for creating a little bit of clarity in what can be a very complex world. So my question for you is this: now that you know the secrets, what complex topic are you going to make simple?